Hi guys, how are you? My name is Zura and today we're going to talk about a new JavaScript fetch API, which is an interface for fetching resources. This is a simple code using fetch. Fetch accepts two arguments. First argument can either be an URL or it can be a request object. In this case, this is the simplest example. We are passing a URL to the fetch function and fetch returns a promise. Here is our response. Our response is an instance of response object and it has much more information than just a result. It has status, it has its OK value, true or false, whether the request was successful or not, and many others. And inside response prototype, it has a couple of methods for fetching the actual response. Such as blob, for example. You can download images or any other binary files using fetch, and then you can call blob on your response, which returns a promise. JSON, text, all of them returns actually a promise object which finally are resolved as final result from this response. Let's call response text and print the result using await keyword, and we need to tell that this callback function is an asynchronous function. Okay, now here is our text. It's a text. It's printed as a text because we are printing here the text result. We can type here JSON and this returns another promise, which when the promise is finally resolved, the actual value will be JSON, and in this case it will be an array. If you have your URL incorrectly typed, the promise returned from the fetch function will finally be still resolved. It won't be rejected, but the OK value will be set to false. So if I have a mistake in my URL, so okay, let me print here response. Yes, I still my promise is still resolved and I print here response, but response JSON is an empty object, of course. My OK is set to false and I have, of course, status 404. So the promise returned from the fetch function will be rejected if there is a network error. But in other cases, in most cases, it's resolved and you can guess whether the request was successful or not by looking at the response. In this case, OK is false, so the request wasn't successful. But you can still call your JSON or text methods, but they don't return anything in case because just it's not successful and the status is 404. If you want to initiate a post request using fetch, you need to pass the second argument, which is an object in the fetch function. The object has method, and you can type post here or put here, which will make a post request. Here is our post request. We made a post request at this URL and it returned this JSON. If we want to pass the data to the post request, we need to specify body in this object, which can be anything what we want. It can be a JSON object, it can be a text, or it can be even form data for uploading files. Name is John and we make the post request. We can see in the headers that we have actually passed the request payload. My mistake. We need to pass here JSON stringify, not actual object. We need to pass it as a string. And in this case, below we have this request payload, which is our JSON object, what we passed there. Fetch API supports much more, so you can find the link in the description of the video about Fetch API. So I really recommend you to read the documentation and what is the most important experiment. So copy some code from the documentation, paste in your JavaScript file, then change something, modify something, add and remove something, and see the result. Experiment with it, play with it, and that will help you to understand how Fetch works, how you can upload files, how you can download files, how you can make put or delete or other types of requests. This is the end of the video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.